Before touchscreens and streaming apps, toys were our ticket to adventure, sparking endless stories and laughter that echoed through living rooms and backyards. Can you feel the snap of plastic pieces locking together, or recall the gentle whir of a cassette being popped into a handheld game? The 1990s were a golden era for play, when simple joys arrived in the form of neon-streaked gadgets and collectible treasures that sent kids racing to the store after Saturday morning cartoons. Fads could sweep a schoolyard overnight. A holographic card or a pixelated pet, suddenly the talk of recess. The smell of fresh vinyl, the rattling sound of trading cards being shuffled, and the anticipation of opening a brightly colored box are stitched into the fabric of a generation's childhood. Which toy did you hold on to the tightest, or beg for every holiday season? As we take a trip back to the decade where imagination ruled and screens took a back seat, let's rediscover the surprises, trends, and pure magic packed inside these blockbuster toys. Were your favorites among them? Cast your mind back to the early 1990s, a time when technology was preparing to burst into our homes, but the world of kids' play was still largely unplugged. The Cold War had just drawn to a close, cable TV was booming, and the internet was barely a blip on the public's radar. Families gathered around boxy televisions for TGIF lineups, and malls pulsed with the energy of teenagers clutching bags from Toys R Us. This era wasn't just about fun. It marked a turning point in the history of how children played, bought, and dreamed. The toy landscape of the early 90s was shaped by several major influences that set it apart from previous generations. First, mass marketing had matured. Catchy jingles, celebrity endorsements, and Saturday morning cartoon tie-ins made toys seem like must-haves. It seemed like every other show had its own toy line, and parents often found themselves at the mercy of relentless advertising. Do you remember the excitement and sometimes frustration of seeing an irresistible commercial, then anxiously circling your favorite toys in the Sears or JCPenney Christmas catalog? But the surge in advertising wasn't the only change. The 90s was also an era defined by the rise of globalization. For the first time, American kids could obsess over Japanese trading cards or European action figures as international toy companies broke into the US market. This cross-cultural blend brought new play experiences. Think Tamagotchis from Japan and Lego sets evolving with European flair. Did you or your friends ever trade treasures from overseas at school, marveling at instructions in a different language or features you hadn't seen before? Another striking feature of this era was the blending of old-fashioned creativity with the first sparks of digital magic. Traditional toys, dolls, building blocks, racing cars remained staples on bedroom floors, but now electronic toys began their steady ascent. It didn't happen overnight, but talking dolls, digital pets, and handheld games injected new wonder into what a toy could be. Surprisingly, many of these early gadgets required a healthy dose of imagination, just like their analog ancestors. There's something unforgettable about coaxing a mysterious LCD pet to life, or dreaming up stories for action figures decked out in neon gear. Meanwhile, toy stores themselves were shrines to possibility. Walking into one was an event, aisles bursting with color, demo stations letting you try the latest hot trend, and the tantalizing smell of new plastic and packaging. It's hard to forget the electricity in the air during the holiday rush when parents and kids dashed from shelf to shelf in search of the year's hottest find. In fact, did you know that in 1992, about 80% of toy sales in the US happened in just the last quarter of the year? Holiday mornings meant mountains of wrapping paper and shouts of delight, and sometimes that bittersweet letdown if the toy was nowhere to be found. What was the hardest to find toy on your wish list? This decade also marked the rise of the collectible craze. Sure, earlier generations treasured marbles or baseball cards, but the 90s took collecting to another level. Companies cleverly packaged toys in series, colors, and characters that were meant to be chased and traded, making playgrounds a marketplace for Beanie Babies, POGs, and trading cards of all kinds. Sometimes it wasn't even about playing, but about having. The thrill was in the hunt. For that elusive piece, the pride of a completed set, or the whispered rumors of retirement that sent values soaring. Some collectors still hold on to these treasures today, their tubs and boxes a museum of childhood hopes. Of course, the pace of change meant that fads flashed and faded almost overnight. A toy could arrive from nowhere, sometimes based on a movie, TV show, or even a commercial, and within weeks become the singular obsession of every kid on the block. But the shelf life was just as short. Remember how POGs took over lunch tables, then vanished seemingly overnight? That was the rhythm of 90s play, intense bursts of excitement tied to the pop culture. Pulse, then just as quickly replaced by the next big thing. Yet, through all these shifts, a feeling of togetherness remained at the heart of it. Toys and games were often built for sharing, encouraging sleepovers, backyard battles, and sibling alliances, or rivalries. The lines between friends and competitors blurred over a game of Tickle Me Elmo races or a heated round of slap bracelets. Looking back, many of us can trace lifelong friendships and memories to the toys of the 90s. But that's not all. There's another reason these toys had such a magnetic grip. In the 90s, the real and imaginary easily intertwined. Play wasn't just about mimicking the adult world, it was about creating new ones. Whether you were a Power Ranger, a Pokemon trainer, or the architect of a sprawling Lego empire, your room transformed into an endless capacity for adventure. Even the packaging played a role. Bright, dramatic boxes sparked the imagination before the toy itself was even out of its shell. You might not believe this, but some of the most iconic 90s toys were actually invented years earlier, only to explode in popularity thanks to timing, clever marketing, or a pop culture lightning strike. For example, did you know that Polly Pocket, that miniature dollhouse phenomenon, debuted in the late 80s but didn't hit its stride until the 90s wave of pocket-sized trends? Or that trading card games were around since the early 20th century. But Pokémon would take the world by storm, redefining the genre for a new generation. So as we peek inside this 90s toy time capsule, the smell of new plastic and that rush of discovery remind us these weren't just products. They were invitations to a world colored by our own style, our friends, and the magic of growing up in a decade of rapid change. Which toy moment defined that time for you? Was it building towering block cities, caring for a pixelated pet, or sealing a deal in the schoolyard with a handshake and a trade? As the curtain rises on our journey, let's move beyond the early days and step into the wild world of technological advancement that would, for better or worse, forever reshape what toys could do and how we played with them. As we reach the end of our journey through the unforgettable world of 90s toys, it's clear that the magic wasn't only in the gadgets themselves, but in the moments they created. The laughter echoed across bedrooms, the friendly battles in backyards, and the anticipation of a coveted gift wrapped under the holiday tree. We've revisited a decade where every new toy release felt like opening a door to an entirely fresh adventure. It was a time when Pokemon cards turned friends into traders and collectors. Tamagotchis introduced us to the joy and responsibility of caring for a digital pet. And action figures, whether molded after superheroes or Saturday morning cartoon stars, became the catalysts for playground storytelling sessions and epic bedroom battles. We remembered how Beanie Babies sparked treasure hunts through malls, POGs transformed lunchrooms into vibrant arenas, and simple joys like light brights or etch, as sketches made creativity spill off the page and into our hands. Perhaps what's most remarkable about 90s toys is how they reflected a rapidly changing world, bridging classic companionships with the first tremors of the digital age. These toys brought us together long before social media and texting entered the picture. Every trend, every must-have gadget created a sense of unity, whether we were chasing after the it toy with our parents, swapping stories in school hallways, or collaborating on sprawling Lego masterpieces with siblings and friends. The thrill was often less about the toy itself and more about the connections we forged, those inside jokes and shared triumphs that became cherished, lifelong memories. In a way, toys were our social network, providing a common language and a way to belong. Looking back, it's easy to see that the real magic wasn't tucked inside the plastic shells or clever packaging. It lived in the wonder, creativity, and friendship those toys inspired. The 90s weren't always about having the latest or rarest collectible. Sometimes the most meaningful moments came from using what we had in new, unexpected ways, turning living rooms into spaceships or building entire worlds in the backyard. Even today, just the sound of a zippered toy case or the familiar jingle of a commercial can transport us to warm summer afternoons or cozy winter mornings spent lost in play. So, as you reflect on this playful chapter of your past, which toy still brings a smile to your face when you think of it? What childhood memory comes rushing back with the sight of a Game Boy screen coming to life, or the first time you managed to keep your Tamagotchi thriving for more than a day? Maybe it's the memory of a fiercely contested POG battle, or the pride in completing your collection of action figures after months of searching. We'd love for you to share your favorite 90s toy memory in the comments below. Maybe it'll spark a flood of stories from fellow viewers who remember the same excitement and pure, unplugged fun. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more nostalgic journeys like this one. Share it with a friend who spent their childhood exploring these playful frontiers. There's always more to rediscover and more stories waiting to be told together. Thank you for joining us as we dusted off these colorful icons and relived the glory days of play. Just like we once treasured every new toy with wide-eyed wonder, let's keep those joyful memories alive, because the best parts of our childhood are never really lost. They're simply waiting in our hearts, ready to be rediscovered at any moment.